everyone, and welcome to TEA's Western Division educational event on understanding pre-construction services. This is a topic that's often overlooked, but very vital to the success of a construction project. Before the shovel first hits the ground, there's a tremendous amount of strategy, coordination, and foresight that goes into shaping what will eventually become a finished structure. Pre-construction is what I call where the vision meets reality. And it's a phase where budgets are built, risks are identified, and designs are refined. There are timelines that are mapped out, and in short, it's the foundation beneath the actual foundation. So today we're joined by a group of seasoned professionals who bring expertise from across the industry. They're all here to shed light on, first and foremost, what are pre-construction services? We really want to create that definition and showcase how we drive smarter decisions, collaborative teams, and ultimately deliver better outcomes. So we ask that you keep your microphones muted, no need for cameras. The participants will be pinned at the top of the screen and highlighted. And please keep in mind, this is for educational purposes only. We're not completely firm and company agnostic and working towards a common goal of a better understanding of our industry. There'll be a Q&A session at the very end, so please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and they will be collated and curated throughout the presentation. So let's dive in with introductions from our panelists. Diana.
Hello, everybody. I'm Diana O'Rourke, a senior producer with the Bezark company. I have spent most of my career living in the blue sky concept SD phase. About 80% of what we do doesn't actually get built, but that 20% does. That does is where this conversation becomes very, very important. And we work with a lot of people, including architects like Dave. Over to you.
I'm Dave Meyers. I have about 25 years of experience as an architect and about 15 plus years in the themed entertainment environment. And I've worked on everything from the blue sky like Diana all the way through the end of construction, working with our consultant team, especially contractors, as well as contractors like PCL.
Tom.
Hi, everybody. My name's Tom Storer. I'm the project director for Merlin Magic Making across North America. Over the past 20 years, I've been half-time at a general contractor, and then the past 10 years at Merlin Magic Making. I'm involved in all aspects of project delivery, from taking the blue sky, putting it into reality, getting those shovels in the ground, and turning it over to ops. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank TEA for this opportunity. I want to thank all the guests that have joined us for this conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. Mike?
Thanks, Tom. Hey, everybody. I'm Mike Denniger. I'm an industry veteran and an engineer. I've been in this industry for over 35 years. Most of that time spent working for the owner, a lot of it developing attractions, and now I'm working in a consulting capacity. And my role as the owner and representing the owner is basically program and project management, finding the right players and processes that will successfully deliver projects that meet the intent of the investment. And now I'll turn it over to Juan.
Good afternoon, Juan Garcia. I'm the Senior Chief Estimator with PCL Construction Services. Manage our estimating and pre-construction department out of our Orlando district, which services the southeast region of the U.S. On the commercial building side for PCL. I provide oversight to our team of 26 estimators here delivering pre-construction services, which we're here today to talk about. And I'm excited to share from our perspective as general contractor, how we're involved and the benefits we can provide to our clients and to the design and to the project overall.
And I'll just briefly introduce myself. So I'm Christina Kanhai. I'm essentially Juan's counterpart on the West Coast of PCL in Seattle. I oversee pre-construction services over our Pacific Northwest, and I'm also a TEA Western Division Board member, and I will be the moderator for today. So let's dive into what are pre-construction services. Mike, you want to kick us off?
Certainly. Thanks, Christina. So, all right, pre-construction services, and I think you know, the answer to this question, it's as usual, it depends, and it can vary. Pre-construction services, you know, can be done at different times in the project timeline, but you know, at its core, pre-con, which is how it's often referred to, refers to the work that is done before construction, and it's by a team that's made up of the owner, the designers, and a contractor. And the intent is to better plan, organize, and design a project so that it's more feasible and timely and cost effective. So you know, as an owner, my role in pre-con would be to determine, you know, first of all, should we even use pre-construction services, you know, as a means to manage a project, and if so, you know, who are the right players for the team to bring together, and both of those questions, both of those points, we will dive into and cover in more detail in this presentation.
Tom, what are your thoughts from the owner side?
Yeah, the pre-con period is the opportunity to, you know, start the building of the team, right? So whether it's our design team bringing in a contractor, bringing in a ride manufacturer, there's a lot of different players that could participate in the pre-construction services, and it's a great opportunity to start building that team trust, you know, building the project on paper and in the modeling before we get to the field. It's a great opportunity to, you know, solve a lot of problems before they become schedule hindering, before they become more costly. So, you know, I really enjoy the pre-construction period personally. So, you know, I'm finishing up one right now, and we're kind of at that in for permit stage, and seeing the team come together, tackle challenges, you know, it's really setting things up for success once construction starts. And I think that is the underlying piece that makes it so valuable. Set the project up for success in the field, save our schedules, save on change orders, and you know, build a good team.
So coming from a design perspective, Diana and Dave, what are your thoughts on what pre-construction services are?
I mean, from, you know, from concept design point of view, this is where the rubber really hits the road, right? You know, we're building teams, we are starting to understand that, you know, what we dreamed, how it actually becomes a reality, and start putting numbers to it. And again, that team trust and building the team that's going to help see it all the way through, and making sure that the idea that was bought off on and loved in the very beginning in that blue sky meeting is what ends up actually being built, and making sure there's a through line there.
I
Dave?
would say there's a lot of what it isn't. What I've run into is when the owner says we're going to bring on pre-construction services, and what I really need is someone to walk with me hand in hand through the design to make sure they understand what it is that we're drawing, what was designed, what's still in our head, because a lot of times pre-construction might come on at schematic design or even earlier, and there's a lot of ideas flowing around. There's 3D models being made, but none of it's really on paper, and if it is on paper, it's not really well described, it's not detailed. So working with someone to say, how much does this cost? How long will it take to build? And what are the constructability issues that you see is really helpful for our team. On the other hand, the things that that I just recently had a project where the contractor said they were providing pre-construction services, and all they were doing was taking our drawing sets at schematic design and bidding them out to or setting up bid packages. And that was not helpful. That was a delayed process, and there wasn't really an estimator on board who we needed immediately in order to inform the design.
Juan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, from the general contractor side, first thing that always comes to the top of the list is cost. So, and that is a big component of the pre-construction services we provide, is budgeting and cost estimating throughout the life cycle, the design life cycle. And as Dave mentioned, it's not just pricing each deliverable. We have a graphic later. I'll talk a little bit more on that, but it's truly providing that real-time estimating, budgeting to the team as we're trying to make those critical decisions through the design process to ensure that we're maintaining the budget that's been established for the project, but also without sacrificing the vision and the creativity that the owner and design team has put together for what we're delivering, especially in our theme entertainment world, right? That's a very big component of these projects is the guest experience. And so we want to make sure we deliver those, but it's so much more that we provide as a general contractor through the process, including coordination with scheduling, which includes procurement, working with the design team on permitting to make sure that, hey, we're planning ahead, way ahead, well ahead of when we're getting to the site and putting shovels in the ground. We're able to help the team make some critical design decisions, whether that's what type of exterior wall system that we want to use that makes most sense for this application, to roof system, you name it. And then managing risk through the process and looking at also opportunities for value, looking at different resources that are available or different products that might be able to be incorporated into the project to save costs, but also looking at technology side of things in our world continues to just evolve, and staying out in front of those things as the design progresses. Because if you wait till the design's done, it's way too late to start talking through those things. What we want to do is make sure that we're bringing all the key stakeholders, leveraging everybody's expertise early in the process, working together, so we're moving those surprises when we get out into the field.
You guys brought up some really, really good points of what pre-construction services are, but why do we perform these services? Let's really take a deeper dive into the why behind it. So, Tom, do you want to start off and tell us a little bit about building a team?
Sure. Yeah, and this is, it's a personal favorite of mine, building teams, bringing people together. We come from all over, a global company working with Europeans, for me, working with people in the UK and the US and both coasts and APAC. We all come from different experiences, different walks of life, and, bringing a team together and starting to build that trust. And how and why we do that, it's like was said earlier, it's going to differ on every single project, but building that team trust early is going to enable us to have those really difficult conversations during pre-construction, but also during the construction period when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, because every project there's going to be issues, right? Something's going to go wrong. The GC, the owner, the design team, we're going to have difficult conversations, and we're going to have the ability to really communicate to build a strong relationship. So if we can do that in a low stress or a lower stress environment of the pre-construction period, a little bit of the honeymoon period. Things are early on in the project, and the pressure of the schedule hasn't quite got to us yet. Building that trust early, working through challenges early, it's just going to make those tougher problems later on easier to solve together, because one person isn't, or one group, one GC, the design team, no one can do this by themselves. So it's that real collaboration and that bond that's going to last through the duration of the project. So
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Like, I know in one of our prep sessions, because we had so many prep sessions, our folks are very passionate about this topic. But Dave, you mentioned something, and you said not only one person can know everything, and that's why we build this team, right? Diana, can you tell us a little bit more about the other bullet points we have here?
Yeah, I mean, I think again that team trust, the collaboration is what makes sure we're all marching towards the same end goal, right? And if everybody understands what we're trying to do early on, then people are more comfortable and freer to bring ideas to the table to help solve those problems, right? Everyone feels like they have an equal seat at the table. And that helps us make decisions earlier. It helps us make the tough decisions earlier, and we're never going to avoid risk, but we can mitigate it.
Mike?
Yeah, and I think, and Juan touched on this when he was just talking on the last slide, and he talked about risk mitigation. Look, when we're doing projects, we're always looking for ways to just lower our risk. You're never gonna have no risk, but if you can put a plan together that sort of deals with things on the front end, so that your outcome is better on the back end, then overall your project will go more smoothly. And I think with large attraction projects, and I was involved in many of them. It seems like you can never start them early enough, and you never have enough money, right? I mean, it's really the way it is. I mean, you really just can't do everything that you want to do, and so I think what pre-con does, and it allows this team that's working together to make these knowledge-based decisions during design, like Tom said, like in this front end, where the barriers should be low. I mean, this is a group that's working together to have a better project outcome, and it's not a one size fits all approach. It's just like our projects are so unique. Pre-con requires like a tailored approach. So the team members have to be the right type of people. So as Tom and Diana mentioned already about collaboration, it's so key. So but that, having that process and dealing with all the things on the front end is the path that hopefully helps you execute really well on the back end.
I think one thing that's really, this concept of everyone knows more. So if we have the themer and the GC and the owner and the design team, and the general contractor is learning some of the constraints and for the theming company, and the design team is learning the constraints of the owner and the owner of the GC, et cetera, that enables better decisions down the line, right? So when the GC goes away to do some pricing, oh, well, I remember speaking with the design team in that coordination meeting, so I can take this path rather than trying to guess. It's that sharing of information and the filling of gaps. It's kind of like a puzzle, and we're looking for all the pieces to put it together. And during the pre-con, there's going to be gaps, and we find those. We mitigate the risk of those gaps by either putting financial plugs in or getting it fully priced, or some version of that. And that's just one of the benefits that, we see a lot.
I think with the team building piece, and Mike, you touched on it about the right team members. Christina and I actually hit it off pretty well on several projects where we were willing to keep an open mind, be wrong about what our assumptions were, communicate, sit at the same desk, and go through things line by line and make sure that we were in fact getting it right. And when we weren't at the same desk, there weren't a whole lot of emails. There was a lot of phone conversations or conference calls um, with our pictures on, making sure that we did in fact get this right, that we were heard, and knowing that you can be wrong and accepting that you can be educated by someone else is really part of the exciting side, but it's really needed in order to build trust.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time together on those projects, and when we had pre-bid meetings, Dave presented his vision to the subtrades just to make sure that we're executing this well and we're pricing it appropriately. And then I was able to vet the subtrades out with that vision in mind, right? As we're evaluating bids. It was open communication, very transparent. So
Yeah.
Juan,
Christina,
go
if I
ahead.
could just,
Go ahead.
before you get to the graphic there, just to piggyback on statements there from the contractor side. Of course, we got our estimators and cost is big, but we're also, when we're talking about team, our project manager, our superintendent, we involve our scheduler, our BDC, BIM department, a purchasing group is involved. So again, we're getting all the key players involved to coordinate and collaborate. We've run into a lot of stuff, especially at active theme parks, where you talk about everybody knows the plan. We have a project going right back through the back of house, so we're dealing with a lot of entities and groups outside of who is on the call today, such as operations of the park, the maintenance team of the park, the parade team of the park, and so this pre-construction stage is where you have those conversations so that we can analyze logistics, how we're utilizing the site, what's available, how we're coming in and out, how we're moving the fencing to make sure our guests aren't affected, make sure our operations aren't affected. So, and at the end of the day, making sure everybody's safe, right? Not only the workers, but the guests, the employees of the theme park. So again, having that time on the front end, you don't want to be sitting out there digging in the ground trying to figure that out. And it's always great to get out on the table day one. What are the hot buttons for everyone, and what are the sacred cows? And again, everyone being on that same page, heading in the right direction.
I think Dave hit a really, key point of sitting next to somebody. In this technology world, it's like we're doing today. Zoom is an amazing tool, but after sitting in a conference room with, 15 people and working through problems for 3 or 4 days, we all turn to each other and go, "Oh man, why don't we do this more? Because we got 4 weeks of work done in 4 days. This is amazing, right?" So given the opportunity, push for that in person, right? Push for that human connection, push to sit across the table with your team. It's going to build trust. You're going to get more done and fill more holes along the way, and probably just enjoy it more than sitting on the computer.
For sure.
So Juan, do you want to describe the graphic that we have in front of us?
Yeah, we like to use this graphic to help basically share the difference between a traditional and a pre-con approach as it relates to controlling costs on the project. The graph at the top is a traditional approach, and shows how costs fluctuate significantly at the different design stages when we're working in silos, especially. The red line kind of represents the cost estimate changes over that design period. And then the black line there running through the middle is our baseline budget. And I like to call this one of our crazy cycles we have in our industry where, we establish a budget and we go out and the design team develops some schematic design. We evaluate what that schematic design costs, whether that's a GC, whether that's an architect, whether that's a third-party consultant that's doing that budgeting. And we find out, hey, we're over budget. Now we spend some few weeks going through value engineering, get it down. All right, ready to go. Here's DD set, and it's back over budget. So you get the point there where on the second graphic, you're having some better emphasis on kind of a continuous and real-time kind of cost control from conceptual all the way through, getting CD documents. And again, with everybody at the table working together, analyzing the cost throughout, you see that green line kind of much more smoother throughout the design stage. So we're not having to make these zigzags, saving costs, analyzing risk, and saving schedule time, right? Time is money. And so, overall collaborative approach, provides a more predictable budgeting, fewer surprises, and again, greater control of costs throughout the process than a traditional approach where you run into overruns constantly.
I think this goes back to Tom's point of sitting in a room together and communicating this information as it changes, because we could go through a pre-con process that looks just like the one at the very top. We design in a silo, we give drawings, you price it, we come back, but there has to be some kind of acknowledgement that whatever thing that we recognize as a change or is new, as soon as we leave a meeting, or whether one of our team members drew something that's new and is surprising and really exciting, we have to communicate that to the construction team and to the owner, and be able to communicate what that is. It might mean that we just put a line item in the estimate for it and we price it later, or that we get on a call, we talk about what the price could be, and we add that to the line item and or to the estimate as a number or an allowance or something else. But it does take initiative from all teams to be able to do the second graphic below.
Thanks. Okay, I know we hit on this topic a little bit already, but let's do a deeper dive into the team and the people aspect of pre-construction services. Diana, you want to start with establishing trust?
Yeah, I mean, this is, we keep touching on the soft skills, but a lot of this is about the soft skills, and it's establishing trust with all the disciplines, with all the folks at the table. And with that comes that mutual understanding and respect. And, like we said, when we can establish that mutual understanding and have that respect, when people do bring ideas to the table that feel a little off the wall, they might be really good solutions. And if we can all sit and listen to each other, some really great problems have been solved from places you would least expect. But we've also touched on that relationship building. It's being in the room when we can, as Tom was talking about, but it's also, send that email, but also follow it up with a phone call, because as we all know, emails and texts and any sort of nonverbal written messaging can go sideways and can be misinterpreted. So nothing beats a conversation, and you get all of the nuance of what is intended when you talk to the person.
And I think we can be very intentional, in this stage. It's a great opportunity, right? You have a new team, so there's team building exercises you can do. We can step away from the nuts and bolts of the design and do a little bit of team building, that we all get to know each other on another level, right? Outside of Tom, the owner with Merlin Magic Making, and Dave, the architect. Well, Dave's wife and kids or family, and what he likes to do in his free time, and just getting to know people on a deeper level is going to help establish that trust as well. So, being creative during this time and, enjoying it and doing some fun things with the team will also, contribute to establishing trust and respect and all of these things that is going to help the project later down the road.
Well, and I've also seen, I feel like a lot of interesting solutions and ideas have come not when we're sitting around a table, but when we've stepped away to grab coffee, when we've gone out for dinner afterwards, right? Like there's sort of these moments when the pressure is off a little bit and then people open up and share even more.
Yeah, that's a great point, because oftentimes some people are a little shy to speak up in a group of 15, 16, 20 people or whatever it is. And maybe they're the most junior person and they're a little shy, but in the one-on-one situation, I'm like, hey, I got this great idea. What do you think? You're like, why didn't you speak up? So that's a great, great point.
I mean, if you think about your first day on a pre-construction project, you're meeting all these new people. They really don't know you, for the most part. And you have to establish credibility and trust with this person. So how do you do that? You probably go into the room. I know from a general contractor perspective, and Juan, you can piggyback on this. We're known as the typical GC who doesn't understand the creative mind, and we're here to just cut the design because we don't have enough money for this, right? Dave and Diana, like, how do you feel about that? You have to leave your ego at the door. So can you guys talk a little bit about misconceptions when you're in that room?
I mean, I'm okay with the contractor being the bad guy. That's fine with me. I think you're right. It is just checking your ego. A lot of us come with a lot of experience. So understanding that it might be a different level of experience than someone else, but also knowing that you have to be able to communicate this information to someone that loves wearing boots and walking around in dirt, as well as an owner that has to answer to higher powers, and knowing that you have to pivot on a dime and be ready to do it.
Yeah, I will always say, like, I am not the smartest person in the room. If I am, we're in trouble, right? We're bringing in people who are experts in what they do. If we're not listening to them, why are we bringing them in?
Agreed. And, we find that when we go through the procurement process to get onboarded early for pre-construction, our clients, that's really what they're looking at is like, who is the team that you're proposing to work with our team? Looking at the resume, looking at their experience, having interviews and that time together to get a feel for, hey, can I work with this person, this team for the next 2 years, right? Versus, hey, this is what it's going to cost me to hire them. Obviously, that always comes into play, but getting the right people for the right project, as Mike mentioned earlier, each project's a little different. You might need this team for that job. You might need this team for the next job. And so it's critical having the right key players that bring their expertise and knowledge to the table to share and willing to share and work collaboratively there. And again, building those relationships and having fun doing it, right? This is, you got to have fun doing what we do because it gets crazy at times. And again, from the GC side, misconceptions, again, you touched on it, Christina, like, well, GCs, they're just here to build what we put on the drawings. So, they don't need to be involved, or, they're, here to be the bad guy, as Dave mentioned, and that, not, limit our creativity and, cut budget and cut scope out of the job. And with PCL and our experience and years, 30 years in the theming industry, we know how critical design and how things look and are to our clients and to their guests. And so we come from that knowledge base that, okay, we're not here just to slash, but let's look at alternate ways to achieve this look. We have a project, just that Epic Universe that we finished up here recently, which is pretty awesome. Hopefully everybody gets the opportunity to get out there soon if you haven't yet. But, we had beam carved plaster everywhere in our queues, including the ceiling originally was designed. And for those familiar with theme carved plaster, that stuff isn't light. It's pretty heavy. So and the structure wasn't designed to take that load. And so instead of saying, well, we can't have that in the ceilings, hey, let's look at other products that are available. And we were able to find a cementitious product that was lightweight, that gave us the same look, even right up against fully beam carved plaster, and save money, save time, and redesign where we didn't have to go back and look at the structure, add a bunch of steel to support these ceilings. So that's kind of our approach. It should be the approach across the board is, hey, let's work together, figure this problem out. And the sooner we do that, in the design process, usually the less painful it is when you get out in the field.
I think there's something that also, as far as the design team goes, that a lot of times the architect is pitted against the contractor, or everyone has this idea in their head, and I'm sure you've all heard it, like, if I can build a house for a quarter of the cost, you're telling me that 200 square foot building costs. And there's really no real frame of reference between that themed element and a house, or a door in a house, compared to or going to Home Depot and buying that thing versus what that actually costs to install. And I think that's a big struggle with the architecture and design team going, these guys are crazy. It can't be that much. And I know sitting down with teams like Christina and Juan, it was like, all right, you have 4 bids. They're within $20,000 of each other, or $60,000 of each other. You can't make this stuff up. They're not all plotting against us. And acknowledging that the cost is what it is, and also understanding that the time in which you're building it. I know for one project, there are multiple bigger projects going on at the same time. And we had to go beg electrical contractors to bid the project. And that came back at a huge additional cost. And everyone's faced with a 200% increase on electrical because no one really wants to bid it. They're super busy. And at that point, it's like, okay, it is more. What do you want to do next? We're all in this together. And instead of going, those guys are crazy, it's too high. And then what? It doesn't get us to any resolution.
Yeah. Hey, Christina, I want to. I mean, a couple things were said there that I think are key. And I'll start with something Juan mentioned, just about the fun of what we do, and it goes into like kind of what Tom talked about earlier. We all know that this is the best industry to work in, and I think that is why we just keep fighting in this industry and doing our best. And that lends itself to a lot of this stuff on this slide happening kind of just because, there's a lot of great people in this industry and we all like each other, at least for the most part. Right. And so I think those things help, and they help you get through some tough decisions also. And then the other point I want to mention, and Dave was going into this, and also Juan, your example with the plaster is it I think this team that you're putting together, yeah, these soft skills are important. They're critically important, and it's also important to have experienced people, as we've said. The other kind of nuance to that experience is relevant experience and in touch with the market. So, it's not the same as, if we would build something in Florida, if we're going to do it again in California, it's not the same pre-con. You can't be the same pre-con. It has a different approach altogether. It's not just the permitting and zoning changes. It's the local economy, and it's the resources available. It's the people that are doing it. So I think so when we say the right people, it means a lot of things. I think that's kind of what we're all saying here. There's a lot that goes into the right people.
Tom and Diana, anything you guys want to add before we move on?
I mean, it much like anything within our industry, or pretty much any industry, it's all about the people, right? Like, from project to companies, and making sure we're taking care of our people, taking care of the teams, building this. We wouldn't be able to build anything if it wasn't from the laborers cleaning up the site to the owner of our companies or whatever, providing the dollars to build the project. So making things people focused is always going to set you up for success.
Thanks. How do you identify projects that require pre-construction services? Like, what's your selection criteria or considerations? Juan, you want to kick this off?
Yeah, for us, nowadays, I would say 85% of our work, we are brought in for pre-construction. Obviously, in the industries we're in, you're looking at those, big, complex, quick to market, schedule sensitive, collaboration sensitive projects, or where we're seeing that across the board. Timing, the sooner the better. That from a GC side that we're involved, we've been involved from concept to, brought in at SD. That's where you can really take advantage of the strategies, right, and the knowledge up front in the design to save, have the most impact throughout the design process there. So we're seeing a lot of our projects on the theming side of things, but also on the hospitality side as well.
Yeah, and I think we touched on a lot of this during that last slide, but oftentimes on the design side, we're approached and asked to design something that has never been seen before. And which is great and exciting, but also that means all of these experts with all of this experience, and they need to be a part of that conversation, because if we're building something that's never been seen before, then we need a lot of input and a roadmap of how we get there.
I would say, just if I would love pre-construction on every single project I have, and to our point starting the session, they're all going to be slightly different. We're building a new Lego retail shop. The pre-construction may be a little shorter, a little more slim, because there's a strict set of standards, and it's been done before, and it's just unique to a location. If we're building a ride that's the first of its type in the region and your new technology, we need a longer, more complex. But almost every project really needs some level of pre-construction.
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of a nuance here about pre-con. I mean, and we talked about, things happening up front versus maybe on the back end, or doing things on the front end to help things on the back end. And the thing I'll mention, at least at a high level, is just because you're doing pre-con, it does not mean that the project's not competitively priced. So it does not remove competition, and this is something that we'll talk about more later. But I think that Dave talked about something earlier on about what it is not. I'd say that I would put that squarely in the category of what it is not, at least from the owner perspective, because a lot of times from the owner, you as a project manager, like Tom and I have been, this isn't you're sometimes fighting these preconceived notions of what pre-con is and why are we spending more money up front, and that is something that you might have to justify possibly, but I think it's understanding that it doesn't mean you're necessarily giving up something that your company requires.
Yeah, and I see that return on investment. It's a great model to run and to show people for the money invested in a pre-construction. If you think about, if you solve an issue during pre-con, you're saving anywhere from 20 to 40% of the cost of that change, right? You get subcontractor markup, GC markup. If you pay the design team to redraw it, it gets expensive really quick in the field, not talking about schedule impact. So solving these problems up front is a much more cost-effective way to do it.
Agreed.
Dave, any last comments? Or Juan, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, agreed with Tom's note there, and Mike hit the nail on the head with, getting that current market value, current market analysis, not only from the cost side of things, from the procurement side, and that's where all that ties into the timing, the speed of market is, some of these elements take some time. On the zoo stuff we do, acrylic panels, man, you don't just get those in next week, right? It's a long lead time for stuff like that. On the electrical mechanical side of things, mapping out our props, ride, in coordination. We didn't even touch on the ride component to some of these projects, all critical. And knowing where the market's at and what's relevant, that what was 5 years ago is definitely not what it is today, right? So keeping a pulse to the market is also key. And I forget who mentioned it earlier, but the staffing, right? Dave, I think, mentioned, when you got Epic Universe being built, that's sucking up a lot of companies, a lot of resources. So you got to plan that out strategically to make sure you are getting the biggest bang for your buck, and we're getting the bodies we need to deliver that on time. So anyway, last note there.
Yeah, that's a great point about, the market availability of labor, right? Sometimes you could sit back like, oh, there's plenty of construction workers out there and there's plenty of companies that are willing to do work, but the themed entertainment industry narrows that down to where there's, a finite amount of companies and labor force to build these really complex, challenging projects. And when you got a big project like Epic Universe, it is a big suck on the labor pool and can make it challenging for, other builds in the region. So understanding that is really key, and pre-con's the perfect time to do it. Do we push the project for a year? Does it make more sense? Will we get better value? So that's a really good point, Juan.
Thank you.
That was actually huge on a project of mine where we were told that we need to bring on a electrical contractor that never had any experience, and we had super high-end AV equipment, and companies like Electrosonic almost have a shorthand with electrical contractors and low voltage contractors in that market. And there were so many things missed in their estimate, not because the drawings were poorly done, but just they didn't know how these things actually connected, or even that company didn't understand what show lighting meant, and that they weren't just buying a light fixture, they were buying a film that goes over the top, that there's additional accessories, and going to the right company to help source that entire package is critical to making this successful and getting the right pricing at the beginning.
Hey, any last comments from anybody before we move on to what the next segment's going to look like? Okay, so during our planning sessions, we had so much to talk about with pre-construction services, and we could not limit this to just 1 hour. So today's session was really just tip of the iceberg. It was talking about the people aspect of pre-construction services. What are pre-construction services and what it isn't. Then we also talked about soft skills and experience. Another thing we talked about was just planning and sharing that plan. There are some things that we didn't even get to hit on, which is cost management and alignment, procurement strategies and approach, and bid packaging. How do you share your plan that you developed as a team with others to engage them, and in our industry, while maintaining confidentiality? So there's a lot of other topics too. We're going to go through the cycle of pre-construction services in a couple of different segments. So the next segment will be discussing cost management alignment, early procurement, and bid packaging. So Ken, I'll hand this over to you for a Q&A session.
Hi, Christina. Sorry, can you, I didn't track the end of that.
Let's move into the Q&A.
Okay, great. I invite everyone who's on the chat or is joining us, if you want to throw some questions in the chat, and then we can prompt our guests to speak to those topics, building on the things that we've discussed already. If anyone is working on a specific project that is relevant to this, where you're getting the pieces in place on a new effort, and you need you have thoughts on, or you want input on how to handle that, then it's a perfect opportunity to have subject matter experts here. And I would say, while we're waiting for that, if there are things that I heard a lot of really interesting things about the importance of working together and you know, building a team and building trust with each other, which I think is awesome. What do you do when you get that estimate and it's just higher than what you can possibly spend? Like, how do you approach that process of in some cases, you either have to cut a lot of things, or maybe you have to adjust your creative vision? Or so how do you guys approach that to keep the spirit alive, but have the reality of being significantly over budget?
Oh man, significantly over budget. I wish I could say I've never been there before and don't. But you know, it's sometimes you go back to the drawing board, right? You say, this isn't going to work. Let's take a new, fresh look at it. Some of it is, you know, some of it can stay, some of it has to go. And that goes to where, you know, you have some of those hard conversations, and, you know, we all have constraints that, you know, the project budget is X, and, you know, we run the risk in our region here, we could lose investment, right? If we have X amount of a capital budget for a project and we're so over that we can't find the design solution, we risk that investment going to a different region. So kind of little selfishly, like I want to put in that extra work and find the creative design solutions and drive the team to figure it out so that we don't lose a big opportunity for our team. But it's really, really hard. Like it's, you're pulling everybody into a room together, and we got a lot, like everybody said, there's a lot of great experience, and I've seen mountains overcome with cost reductions that you didn't even think was possible. How are we going to find, depending on the scale, $10 million out of this project? Holy moly. But, you know, chipping away, eating the elephant one bite at a time, like starting with the low hanging fruit. Okay, those were nice to haves. Bye-bye. Okay, these are the hard nose. We got to keep these. All right. Now we got the low hanging fruit. Let's go into the next section and just keep chipping away until you get to where you need to be. But it's time. You need a lot of time because it doesn't happen overnight. We need Juan and the GC team pricing it and getting that market feedback as our design team members are working through these solutions and talking through them all. So it sometimes feels insurmountable until you conquer it, and then it feels like a crowning achievement that you've got to the budget, and here we go, we get to build it.
I've been involved in a lot of these, and I can say that just about every one of my projects have had budget busts. But I would say that the SeaWorld and United Parks and Resorts, Mike's team, had a pretty good process or understanding with our team. And that was, we always tried to brainstorm with them as well as with the contractor if they were on board. And we would on purpose come up with double the amount of the overage. And that gave everyone the opportunity to place value on the things that they want, like Tom said, but it was double. So we knew that there were going to be some hard decisions and we could leave them off the table, but we at least had a plan to get to budget. And some of them are really, really hard decisions that we would make Mike make that decision, not us.
Yeah, somebody said, Juan, I think you said sacred cows earlier, and this is this is where all that investment you put in with that team, that relationships on the team, this is when it pays dividends the most, is when you have the problems, and I think Tom talked about that earlier also. And yeah, so when everyone is aligned and they understand the project better, it's easier. It's not easy, but yeah. And Dave, to your point, we would put in purposely, we would look for value engineering opportunities during design, and of course you would design as cost efficiently as possible, but we would also put in a couple ways we could take the project depending on how things come out and how the market truly responds when the entire package is put on the street.
Well, and I loved Juan's story about the ceiling and finding a different material, right? Like that's why you have everybody in the room. That's why you pull from all the different disciplines, because the big line item that you think has to go, there might be a cost savings by doing it a different way. And that's not necessarily something the concept team is going to think of, but the GC might, or the fabricator for the theming, or so having all those people at the table is important.
You gather a big room together, you have the estimate, you have the scope, get everyone together, sit down and sort of, just like you said before, trust each other to kind of work together to get the number down. I mean, I guess that's all you can do, right?
Yeah, and the sooner you identify that, the more opportunity you have to make those adjustments versus come CD and we have to we're scrambling and making drastic cuts. It's a lot smoother process that earlier we can identify those items, we can identify alternates, maybe we design it this way, but get an ad alternate to see what this might be worth if we have extra funding for X, Y, or Z. So lots of conversations.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat. So the next question I would throw out to the team is, what's the best team building exercise you've ever been a part of?
I'll start with and Diana, you talked about this earlier when you were talking about blue sky and getting people in the room, and I think having people together, physically together in the room, and especially at the front end of a project, because I mean, let's face it, that's when everybody has the most fun. It is, it doesn't look anything like the construction end of a project, and you build lifelong relationships and friendships with the people that are in that room with you. I mean, Dave, you and I think we met in 2009 or something, or 2010. Yeah. So I know the project and you know the project, and we've been doing stuff together ever since and having a lot of fun along the way. So I think like that is team building. I mean, though, when those connections are made. So I think, again, I'll say it again, we're lucky because the medium, it makes it easier. And so anyway, that's my thought.
Yeah, there's been a few. I haven't been personally involved in only a couple over my career, but I know across several projects where, hey, we're building a new attraction or element or something that's been built somewhere else, whether that's West Coast, the East Coast, or vice versa, or something overseas. And so it's always nice to get with the owner, design team, and take those trips to go see those projects, talk to the operators, get the lessons learned, and again, you guys were together doing that, learning, growing, to gain that knowledge to put into the project, but you're also building that relationship. Those have been pretty cool to be part of.
I'll just say that I think a lot of the team building stuff is really cheesy, and it's hard to get buy-in from me. I'm pretty cynical when it comes to those things, but for me, my team building that I do is I try to reach out immediately. I find out that these are the people on the team, and maybe even before the first meeting, I'll have figured out what their phone number is and given them a call, tell them I'm looking forward to working with them and where I'm coming from on the project, and just immediately open up the communication line, like call me anytime.
What I'm hearing is Dave wants to do some trust falls next time we're all in a room together.
I think I got one that I'm going to win you over with, Dave. We did one we had the architect, our GCs, our team, our themers. We all were in a room with our master model builders, and they gave us the test that they give to a new master model builder. And we had to replicate building a Lego duck and a Lego apple. And it's a lot harder than it looks. So I think everybody got a little bit of that vulnerability in there. Oh man, this isn't necessarily easy. We had some laughs and it was kind of low pressure. So I thought that was a fun one. So we get a hold of you. Let's go build a Lego duck.
I'm in.
All right. Might have to build a Duplo Lego duck with LJC, but.
Okay, so the next question is, do any of you have any advice for someone starting or transitioning into this industry? Folks that are early in their career.
I for sure.
I think 3 people said it in the last answer, which is building relationships. I was told that it might have been day 1 of my construction career. It's all about building relationships. The managing director at the time drew one relationship on the board and then did this like diagram that all these different relationships led to this huge network of clients, friends, subcontractors, jobs, all of those things. And, going back, how do we build trust? It's those relationships. So building relationships from day one across the industry, just like you're doing here in this, attending this call, I think would be my go-to advice.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the advice I give is find, where depending on where you are, TEA mixers, those are usually free or no cost or low cost, and just become a familiar face, right? You're not there to be like, hi, I would like to find a job. You're there to make friends and build those relationships in a casual setting. And the more you become a familiar face, the more someone will think of you when an opportunity comes up.
I would
Yeah.
actually say go visit the attractions. Having some knowledge of the attraction that you can ask people. So once you do go to the T8 mixer and you run into someone that had worked on that attraction, it's really great. We love to talk about ourselves. So it's easy. Just figure out who did what project and ask away.
Yeah. Yeah, relationship key. Ask questions. Never stop asking questions. Like, I've been in this industry 28 years and still learning how to put these different puzzles together that come across my desk. And then, yeah, lean on those around you, others that are in the industry, as Dave said, whether that's a sub-trade, a design architect or consultant, to a GC owner. There's lots to learn. So have that initiative and put yourself out there for sure.
Yeah, I think another way, and I've always kind of been a proponent of get your foot in the door. So I do think, like, proximity helps, and it doesn't have to be the perfect alignment maybe with what you're exactly looking for. I think the Tom's comment on relationships is key. Like I always say, like, we're all in this industry. I think we're all about 2 degrees of separation away from each other. I mean, just about everyone. I mean, maybe that gets 98% of the entire industry is we, just 2 degrees off each other. So I think being around is important. And another way to do that is volunteering. So there are efforts around the industry. You can volunteer at TEA things. IAPA has volunteering and panels and committees. I do a lot of work with the ASTM F24 group, which is amusement rides and devices. It's a small group of people, but man, there are some excellent people in that industry, and they're heavy hitters in the industry, and you can just walk right. I mean, the opportunity to connect is I agree with what Dave said. We all love to talk about, I would say, what we do and the industry, not maybe what we did, but what we do. And so I think putting yourselves in those situations you'll find ways to connect further.
And last question, at what point does frontline operations get brought in?
So Tom, I can start on this, and maybe you can jump in. What in my experience, what we liked to do is our people who manage projects, they had to wear a lot of hats. They had to know at least a little bit about a lot of things, and so that includes in general operational considerations in the overall plan and design and execution. I'd say even our designers got to know those things. So it just happens over time. That said, we would bring operations in very early. Perhaps not at Blue Sky necessarily, because that Blue Sky is more about the idea. As you sort of but as you get into the concept and you start talking about like, things like throughput and maybe back of house support and access, and and you think about what else is going on in the if it's a park, like where you have shows and when the shows are going to dump, and what that would mean to the attraction and the overall attraction, not just the ride, but the realm and how it loads and unloads. So it's early, I guess, is my point. It's concept, and if not concept, then absolutely by schematic. You have to have operational and like the people who are going to run it, because the thing that you need, and that may be the point of this question, is you need buy-in, because these are the people that are going to operate it, and we not everybody's going to be happy. I mean, that's just how it goes. But if you get some buy-in on the front end and you try to understand what really matters, it's very helpful.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add to. I think Mike kind of nailed it. It's early concept, schematic, bringing our teammates, our operating teammates to the table, building those relationships as well, hearing what they have to say, because they're the experts in how the operations run. So getting their input is critical. Now, things may not go exactly how they wished, and that's part of the game, but bringing them, giving them a seat at the table, building that trust, they're going to understand if something isn't exactly how they want it, because we'll have talked about it and we have risk assessed it, and we've made a collective team decision for the best of the overall attraction and the business. So yeah, early and then often, and then continued throughout the life cycle of the design, and then the project as well, under construction, still talking to about, still working through concerns. So
Okay, so that's all the questions that we have in the chat. I think we're also at a point where we're running out of time. So thank you all for participating. I think this was great, and looking forward to the next segment. Ken, any other last comments?
No, just thank you so much for the panelists and also for our audience to chime in and join us today. It's just we have these about once a month where we get together on different topics and talk about what's happening in the industry. So really great to have all of you, the panelists there, participating with us and sharing your expertise. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.